Hey friends, this weekend was week 2 of our series on Proverbs, and our guest Dave Stone shared with us what God has to say about planning and wisdom when it comes to seasons of change or transition or next steps that we have to think about. And hopefully you caught in Friday's What's Happening that this week, together, we're reading through Proverbs chapter 3 once each day the entire week. And as I've read Proverbs chapter 3, you can't help but notice verse 1 and 2. Verse 1 and 2 says this. He says, "My child, never forget the things I have taught you. Store my commands in your heart. If you do this, you'll live many years and your life will be satisfying." Right out the gate, Solomon is saying what we've been kind of talking about in this series, which is soak up God's teachings. He doesn't say store Solomon's commands. He's saying, no, this is God's commands, God's wisdom that he's given to me and I'm making personal to you. Store up those things in your heart. And when you do that, you'll live a life of not only many years to old age, but a life of purpose and satisfaction and peace. Take these things and store them up, and then tap into them later on. And in Proverbs chapter 3, near the end, he kind of talks about how we tap into those things. In verse 21, he says, "Don't lose sight of these things." Don't lose sight of good planning and intent. Don't lose sight of, other translations say, common sense or wisdom and discernment. Don't lose sight of those things. Hang on to that. This is when we can tap into that wisdom. He's like, because when you do that, when you hang on to that, you're going to refresh your soul. You're going to stay safe or be kept safe on your path, your journey of life. You won't have to go to bed with fear if you hold on to this wisdom, this common sense, this discernment. It's like, okay, well, we have to stop here for a second and we have to be careful at what Solomon is not saying. What Solomon isn't saying is, hey, if you have great plans, you're good. Hey, if you're the most knowledgeable person, if you use great common sense, you're great. It's not what he's saying, which is why verse 26 continues to jump out at me as I read through Proverbs chapter 3. Because in verse 26 he says, "For the Lord is your security." The Lord is the one who will keep you safe. See, it's not your great plans. It's not your retirement plans, your career plans, your kids' school plans, your whatever it is. It's not your plans that keep you safe. No, the Lord is your security. And he has graciously offered to us his wisdom. He has shared with us his truth and his knowledge. And if we can store those things up, if we can read them regularly and store them up and then tap into them in times where we're making decisions, where we're faced with situations, where we're confronted with circumstances we don't know what to do, and we tap into that, we plan well, we use wisdom, we use God's fueled common sense and discernment, then we will live a life of satisfaction, a life of peace and purpose, not because we know it all, but rather because God is our security and we're just leaning in to what he has offered to us. I hope you'll join us if you haven't yet, Proverbs chapter 3, once a day for the rest of this week, and together we'll continue learning the art of living wisely.